Hi, and welcome. You're listening to the X22 Report. My name is Dave, and this is episode 1662B, and today's date is September 12th, 2018, and the title of the episode is Timing is Everything, Panic in D.C., Rats Running, No Place to Hide. Let's get into the economic collapse, political, and geopolitical news. Now, what we're watching here is the slow destruction of the deep state, and it looks like Trump, Q, and the rest, they are turning the screws very, very slowly to make all these individuals suffer, panic, and maybe even try to make a run for it. And this is exactly what we're seeing right now, and Q even lets us know that this is happening, and we'll get into that in just a minute. But I wanted to talk about what Trump is doing right now. He signed an executive order sanctioning foreigners who meddle in the U.S. election. Now, Trump is saying anyone that meddles in U.S. elections, he will slap sanctions on foreign companies or people who interfere in U.S. elections based on intelligence agency findings. The sanction targets could include individual people or entire companies accused of interfering in U.S. elections. It could include countries or anyone else. Now, think about what he's doing right now. Now, of course, the news was on trying to convince everyone that he colluded with Russia. Russia interfered with the 2016 election, and this is why he won. Well, now he just turned the tables. And he's saying, listen, anyone that interferes with the election, we will place sanctions on you. This way, he shows that he's not with Russia. He's not with any country. But what this also shows is that those individuals that try to interfere from another country, maybe the Five Eyes intelligent countries, if they try to interfere with something like a cyber attack or something like that, those countries will get hit with a sanction. And he knows that this would be coming from the deep state. So he's putting it out there and protecting the election system. And Q has been telling us, and from the previous posts that Q has put up there, listen, go out and vote. We will handle the election process. We'll make sure that it is fair. And it looks like this is the first stage of it. We see Judicial Watch right now. They're going to be suing the Department of Justice for emails found on Anthony Weiner's laptop. Now, this is what they're looking for. All records regarding the search of a laptop owned or formerly owned by former Congressman Anthony Weiner. All records retrieved from a laptop owned or formerly owned by former Congressman Anthony Weiner. All records of communications, emails, text messages, and instant chats sent to or from FBI officials relating to Hillary Clinton's knowledge or possible knowledge of illicit activities involving former Congressman Anthony Weiner. So, right now, Judicial Watch, they have a lot of lawsuits going. They're looking for a lot of information of what is going on with FISA, with the emails, with Clinton emails, with Uranium One, with Anthony Weiner's laptop. And we can see that the truth, it's going to come out any second. They're preparing all this information, and it's going to hit. And this is why I keep saying this is not just the storm, but the perfect storm that is coming down on all these people. Now, Q has said to us, those individuals that scream the loudest, well, they have a lot to lose. And we see Maxine Waters out there, and she is continually saying, impeach, impeach. She says, after we impeach Trump, we'll go after Mike Pence. We'll get him. And you could see that Trump even tweeted out, crazy Maxine Waters. After we impeach Trump, we'll go after Mike Pence. We'll get him. Where are the Democrats coming from? We have the best economy in history of our country. Would totally collapse if they ever took control. So we see at this point, there are certain individuals within government that are getting very, very nervous. Now, we know that Trump has been saying, and Q has been saying, that this is not right. The social media companies, they can't be censoring certain people and allowing other people to speak. They have no proof when they bring down their Twitter accounts or the YouTube channel or hide websites or do shadow banning. and he wanted the FCC to look into this, and it looks like Attorney General Jeff Sessions is considering an investigation into social media companies for violating antitrust laws. So it looks like they're already getting the ball rolling, and I believe that this is going to continue on, and eventually we might even see the breakup of a lot of these companies. Now, about a month ago, or maybe a month and a half ago, individuals were arrested in this New Mexico compound where they were training terrorist groups. They had terror attacks planned, and then a judge let them go out on bail. And we realized that this judge is probably on the take. Well, the FBI went back in, arrested the people, and a federal grand jury has indicted the New Mexico compound suspects. And they allege they were planning a terrorist attack. And I do believe that this is not the only compound. And it was very interesting, and we talked about this before, that they destroyed the compound, which is kind of odd. Wouldn't you want to gather more evidence? Wouldn't you want to keep it until after the trials? But they went ahead and they, bulldozed it through. They destroyed the entire thing. Basically, what they were doing was they were getting rid of evidence. We've seen this done many, many times before with false flag events. We see Putin is out there, and he's saying, listen, those two individuals in the Skripal poisoning that the UK is pointing the finger at, where they doctored the timestamp as the two individuals came off a plane and they're walking down the same exact passage, and they said, look, we have pictures of them, but they didn't realize they put the same exact timestamp to the second for each person, and it's completely impossible to have both of them photographed walking in the same exact area down this hallway without seeing the other person, which is kind of odd. Putin is out there saying, listen, we have identified the two men that Britain named as suspects in the poisoning of former Russian spy, and there's nothing criminal about them. They're civilians, and we would like these civilians to come forward and explain everything to, the media, to the UK, why you were there in Britain. And we could see at this point, the UK story, it's about to fall apart. The whole thing is going to come down right now. We see the deep state right now in Libya. They are pushing their agenda full steam ahead. They are now attacking the headquarters of the Libya's National Oil Corporation in the Libyan capital of Tripoli. And we can see that they're just creating chaos all over the place. They're destroying the oil. They're trying to take control of it. And again, this is what it's all about. Just like they did in Syria, where they took control of the oil there. And this is where a lot of the revenue was coming in. Of course, during Obama's reign, they could never find the convoys until Russia came in. And Russia says, well, there they are. You don't see them? And of course, we know that the United States, the deep state, they set up the convoys. They were looking the other way because it was funding their paid mercenary groups. And now we see they're using the same tactics in Libya, but it will not work. They are too late. We see that everything is starting to fall apart for them. And they're trying to do whatever they possibly can to control the situation in the Middle East, and it will not work. We see out in Syria, things are starting to really heat up in the Idlib area. Bombings are on the way, and we can see that they're preparing for a chemical attack. This is going to be a false flag attack, and this will allow the Trump administration to use, most likely, missiles to fire at this area to take out the deep state infrastructure, to take out the paid mercenaries. And again, when people say, well, the United States is siding with Al-Qaeda, no, the deep state is siding with Al-Qaeda. Remember, Al-Qaeda was created by the intelligence agencies. They still have power in certain areas. They set up power structures in certain areas. They're still working in these areas. And they are the groups that side with Al-Qaeda, with al-Nusra, with the Islamic State. What's happening right now is we have a war within the United States. We have the intelligence agencies. We have Al-Qaeda, the Islamic State, al-Nusra. These terrorist groups, they are the paid mercenary army for the deep state. And then on the other side, we have Trump, the patriots, that are actually going after the paid mercenary armies, going after the deep state, their infrastructure in these areas. This is not what it was back when Obama was president, where he was calling the shots and saying, okay, let's bomb over here in Syria, allow the Islamic State to take over another town. Because remember, they were supporting the Islamic State. They were funding the Islamic State. Everything has changed now. Everything is different. So when you hear the United States is siding with Al-Qaeda, no, it's not the United States. It's the deep state intelligence agencies that created these factions. They're the ones who are supporting. They're the ones who are airlifting them out. They're the ones who are funding them. Remember, Trump took away the funding for the moderate rebels. Trump took away the funding for the White Helmets. Trump took away the funding for the Kurdish soldiers in the Kurd region where they were going to separate Syria and Iraq. All of this was taken away. And the bombings that Trump did in Syria allowed Russia and Syria to move in and liberate these areas. It didn't stop Russia and Syria. It allowed them to go after the paid mercenary forces. That's what we're seeing right now. And this last bombing, this last part of the war, is to go after the last remaining paid mercenary armed forces that are hiding in Idlib, to get rid of the deep state infrastructure. Once that is gone, Russia, Syria, they will control Syria, which means the U.S. troops no longer need to be in this area, where they could say, okay, the deep state's not controlling this area. There's no reason for the U.S. to be here. We're going to be pulling out. The coalition forces do not need to be there. They're going to be pulling out. And we're going to see this happen very, very soon. So I wouldn't be surprised in the next week or two that we might see this false flag actually happen. Let's get into Q's post here. This is post 2150. Q, and this is on September 11th. Q put up 2 graphics right now and also put up 2 links to a Twitter feed by Representative Mark Meadows. And basically what the graphics are, this is how the deep state, the intelligence agencies, communicated with reporters. Now, this is coming out of the Federalists, and this is the Inspector General who put together this FBI leak chart and showed how they did this. Now, the Department of Justice Inspector General report released 2 of these charts mapping the volume of communications identified between FBI employees and members of the media in April, May, and October of 2016. We have profound concerns about the volume and extent of unauthorized media contacts by FBI personnel that we have uncovered during our review. This is what the report states. So they have 2 different charts. They have H chart and the G chart here, and shows what has been happening. Now, what the report says is that the FBI employees improperly disclosed non-public information, also known as leaking tips to reporters, raised considerable concerns according to many of the investigators. They discovered a number of social interactions with reporters deemed inconsistent with FBI policy and department ethic rules. FBI employees received tickets to sporting events from journalists, went on golfing outings with media representatives, were treated to drinks and meals after work by reporters, and were the guests of journalists at non-public social events. Now, the report states the following. First, we frequently find that the universe of department and FBI employees who had access to sensitive information that has been leaked is substantial, often involving dozens and in some instances more than 100 people. We recognize that this is a challenging issue because keeping information too closely held can harm an investigation and the supervision of it. Nevertheless, we think the department and the FBI need to consider whether there is a better way to appropriately control the dissemination of sensitive information. And then there's this. Second, although FBI policy strictly limits the employees who are authorized to speak to the media, we found that this policy appeared to be widely ignored during the period we reviewed. We identified numerous FBI employees at all levels of the organization and with no official reason to be in contact with the media, who were nevertheless in frequent contact with reporters. The large number of FBI employees who were in contact with journalists during the time period impacted our ability to identify the sources of leaks. And then Q put up the 2 Twitter feeds from Mark Meadows. Now, these tweets that Mark Meadows is putting out there. This is from the report from Sarah Carter, and it shows the Strzok text and Lisa Page text talking about how they're going to be giving this information to the media, and we went over this yesterday, and that's what Q is referencing right now. So we're going to be moving on to post 2151, and Q put up a link to Breitbart, which is Pope Francis compares Vatican whistleblower to Satan. And this is post 2151. I'll read part of the article to you. Satan, the great accuser, has been unleashed against the bishops of the church, Pope Francis said Tuesday in a thinly veiled reference to the former Vatican nuncio to the United States. The former nuncio, Archbishop Carlo Maria Vigano, recently accused a number of prelates of dereliction of duty in dealing with clerical sex abuse and claimed that the Pope had rehabilitated serial abusers Cardinal Theodore McCarrick, elevating him to a position of influence despite knowledge of his misdeeds. And it looks like Q is out there saying that, look at the Vatican, it is corrupt there. There's individuals in there that are part of this whole entire sex scandal, and it looks like this is what Q is pointing out. Let's move on to post 2152, and Q put up Pfizergate, the movie, coming very soon to a theater near you, and we can see that this is going to be released very, very soon. And on this picture of the movie poster is Obama, Clinton, Comey, McCabe, and it looks like Valerie Jarrett there also, or Lynch. And it looks like, Q is saying we are almost there and we're going to be releasing this very, very soon. And I think this is going to come probably next week between the 17th and the 20th. 17th, again, is Constitution Day. The 20th is when we're having that emergency drill where the emergency broadcast system is going to do a test at that time. So I believe it's going to happen within that period of time. Now, I'm not predicting that it's going to happen in that time, but it seems like those are the two dates that they've been referring to. But if it happens a little bit later or before, it's not really a big deal. We see an Annan noticed another zero delta in the post from Pfizergate and a tweet from Trump. Now, what's very interesting, the last delta was 10 seconds apart. This one is 9 seconds. So the question is, and maybe many people are starting to think this, is this the countdown? 10, 9, are we going to see another delta with 8, then another one with 7? We'll have to follow this to see if this is where this is headed, because if that is the case, we're watching the countdown right now. Let's move on to post 2153. And this has many different posts. We're going to see 2153, 2154, 2155, 2156, 57, 58, 59, 60. These all have to do with the same thing. So let's go through them right here. This is post 2153. Panic in D.C. Brackets bold. Rod Rosenstein requested meeting with POTUS. Declined. Q. Decline. That sends a very clear message to more than just Rod Rosenstein that POTUS is not seeing anyone right now. There are no deals. So what's happening here? Well, we know a sitting president ordered the willing judicial branch of the U.S. government to spy on and set up a false sting operation on his party's political opponent for the upcoming presidential election. And these people realize they are caught now because they never thought that Trump was going to win. And since Trump did win the election, if you notice, they've spent countless hours, actually, 2 years now, actually prior to the election also, trying to keep him from winning the election and trying to get him out of office. Why would you do that? Would you do it because he's a racist? Because he's improper? Well, we know that all these things aren't true. Do you really think that's the reason? Or do you think that these individuals knew what was going to happen? If he was in office, he has no connections, he has no loyalty to the deep state. They knew that he was coming after them, and eventually he was going to find out everything that they've done. And they couldn't have him in office. I'm surprised, and this is my personal opinion, they they let him go this long. I think they thought they had everything under control. And now we're coming to the period where they're starting to realize everything's starting to fall apart right now. So did Rod Rosenstein, did he try to go to Trump and say, you can't do this. For the good of the nation, you can't do this. Either that or he truly wants to explain himself and beg for his life and maybe cut a deal. But remember, there are no deals. 2154. Q says, panic in D.C. King and Spaulding hired last week to represent Sally Yates. Now, Sally Yates works for King and Spaulding. And if you look at this, what is King and Spaulding, what do they specialize in? They specialize in special matters and government investigations. So she works for this firm, and she hired her own firm to defend her from what's coming. I wonder if she got a discount. 2155, Q put up panic in D.C. Comey in communication with McCabe. R.E. testimony story. So do you think they're trying to coordinate their details of their testimony to make everything sync so they're together on this? Maybe. 2156, panic in D.C. James Baker testifying against Comey. Whoa, that's huge. 2157, panic in D.C. Lisa Page testifying against Peter Strzok. When does a bird sing? Boom. 2158, panic in D.C. Bruce Orr, in an effort to save Nellie Orr, testifying against Rosenstein. Yates, Lynch, and Comey. You can see which people have flipped. Post 2159, panic in D.C. Steele requests non-extradition to U.S. Does that mean he's already guilty or found guilty in the U.K.? UK-U.S. Extradition Treaty 2003. So if you go onto the web and you look this up, and the first thing that comes up is WikiLeaks, I found this is very interesting, and it looks like an Annan might have put this in there. It says UK-U.S. Extradition Treaty of 2003. Controversy surrounds UK-U.S. Extradition Treaty of 2003, which was implemented by the UK in the Extradition Act of 2003 and came into force in April of 2007 following its ratification by the U.S. Senate in 2006. And right after that, it says, Christopher Steele, the storm is now upon you. And if you go to WikiLeaks, you can actually see this. Type in UK-US Extradition Treaty and you'll be able to see it. But the treaty has been claimed to be one-sided because it allows the U.S. to extradite UK citizens and others for offenses committed against U.S. law, even though the alleged offense may have been committed in the UK by a person living and working in the UK. So Steele is requesting a non-extradition to the U.S. He does not want to be sent to the U.S. Does he want to be tried in the UK? But it looks like he's already guilty, and he's trying to convince people, don't send me over there. I don't want to stand trial. Post 2160. Rats running. Timing is everything. Enjoy the show. Q. Post 2161. Put up an article from New York Times. This is a trail of breadcrumbs leading conspiracy theorists into the wilderness. And Q says another wave of attacks coming. This article was put out by the New York Times. Nothing to see here. And basically this article goes into why this is a conspiracy theory, why nothing's going to happen, no reason for it. And when you read it, you got to give the clowns some kudos on this one. This is some good propaganda. Especially liked how they derided Q's usage of pop culture reference and then turned around and referenced fairy tales and myths themselves. And they talk about how, it's all conspiracy and things like that. And we need to remember, the New York Times is owned by Mexican billionaire Carlos Slim, who is also a major investor in Cemex, which is that company that is dealing with human trafficking. We talked about that a while back. But again, these are threats. These are articles that are coming out. These are attacks on Q because they're trying to convince everyone that there's nothing to see here. Now, the author is Matthias Schwartz, And he is a contributing writer for the magazine and former staff writer at the New Yorker, where he won the Livingston Award for international reporting. His last feature for the magazine was about the former CIA director, John Brennan. Very interesting. This individual is also a former national security reporter for The Intercept. He has served as contributing writer for the New York Times Magazine, a staff writer, again, at the New Yorker, and currently a term member of the Council on Foreign Relations. Very interesting. Now, in this article, there is this crossword puzzle, and they highlighted deep state. Now, Annans went through this, and they started to find all different words that they hid in here subliminally, and you can see some of the words are White House, plot, USA, aliens, Hillary, Illuminati, Bigfoot, power, Q, red, NSA, documents, CIA, justice, secret. So you can see right now when you're looking at this, they're trying to get the conspiracy theory subliminally in your mind to make you think that this whole thing is a conspiracy theory. Now, remember what Q said back in post 2114. Specific timing rests with POTUS. Hints expend ammunition. And it looks like this is another piece, and they're expending their ammunition. And it looks like Trump, the Patriots, Q, they want them to do this. They want to have them continually put this stuff out there to use up their ammunition. Let's move on to post 2162. This is a picture of individuals. They're all dressed in yellow, and they're sitting on a lawn, and it's Q and then plus. And under it, Q says, "Together we win." Q. Post 2164. Q put up a Twitter link, and this is not your mom's opinion, and it says, "It's hammer time." And this individual listed post 2108, which says, "Goodbye, Mr. Rosenstein." Q. Now, we can see that the storm is definitely here, and it's going to hit very, very hard. We see Steve Bannon is out there, and I think this is very interesting that he put out there in a tweet. "I wouldn't be surprised if by the end of President Trump's first term, you see multiple people from Obama's administration, if not he himself, in federal prison. The level of corruption being uncovered right now will rock the nation." And it will rock the nation. And remember, when the 20 pages are released from FISA, they're unredacted. Don't think that this is the end. This is the very, very beginning. It's to get the people used to what these people have been doing. This is why Trump has been tweeting out so much about Bruce Orr, Comey, Obama, Clinton. This is why all these individuals have been brought out into the spotlight. This is why they have been weakened, because this is a complete setup. And this is just the beginning stages, because once they start to unravel this and more of the truth comes out and the dominoes start to fall, you're going to see the rats run. They're going to try to hide, but there is no place to hide. And you can see right now, they're preparing for this. And there's nothing the mainstream media can do. Yes, they can ignore it for a while. But when more and more of this evidence comes out, now I'm not talking about propaganda evidence like the intelligence agencies use, where they have nothing to back it up. I'm talking about hard, documented evidence, video, signatures, documentation, orders, all recorded and presented to the public. That's when people start to wake up. That's when people will say, "What happened here? Wait a minute, they signed this? There they are in a video? There they are colluding? What did Clinton do? She sold secrets to the Chinese, and this is how she did it?" Once this starts to come out, people will start to realize. Now remember, people are going to reject in the beginning. People are not going to get on board. They're not going to be like, "Oh my God, thank God this came out. I knew it." No, people are going to say this is fake. Trump is lying. He's putting out more lies. We don't believe it. Show us proof. And this is when they're going to show proof. Unlike the mainstream media, unlike the intelligence agencies, when we in the alt media asked to show proof, they never could. It's just more propaganda. Here you're going to see documented proof. And guess what? when you see documented proof, it's the truth. You can't do anything with it. You can't say it's a lie. You can't say it's untrue. It's their signatures. It's their documents. It's them on the videotapes. It's them calling the shots. They're the ones who did it. And when they show how they did it, that's when people are going to be shocked. This is when the nation's going to be rocked. And people are going to be like, what just happened here? Everything that we've known has been a lie. This is the reset. It's an economic reset. It's a reset for the country. It's a reset for the government. And a lot of people are going to be going down with the ship here. A lot of people that you didn't even realize that were going to go down with the ship because they're all going to be implicated. So the storm is here, and it is the perfect storm. Get prepared for it because it's going to hit, and it's going to hit hard. Listen, everyone, thanks a lot for listening. Be well, be safe, and especially be prepared. Thanks a lot.